That's
Hello and welcome to the weekly broadcast of Strategic Speaking for Results. I'm Elizabeth Bachman, your host, and I'm so happy to have my dear friend and guest here today, Shelley Golden, who is the Zoom Makeover expert.
good morning. Good morning, or at least it's morning where I am.
Yes, it's evening where I am in Europe. Yes, and for those of you who are listening, we have just posted on the Speakers Who Get Results podcast an interview with Shelley Golden about how to upgrade your screen presence. And there was one topic that we didn't get to. So I'm getting the opportunity to catch her again today. And that is coping with Zoom fatigue.
Yeah.
Let me just read the official bio, which is about Shelley Golden. She's an international personal branding image consultant, fashion stylist, and certified color consultant with more than 20 years of experience. And she's the owner of Shelley Golden Style. As the result of COVID-19, Shelley created the Zoom Makeover, a 5-step process to help up-level your online screen presence to create a more professional image, increase engagement, improve rapport, and elevate your brand by aligning everything in your Zoom box. And I have to say, I send my clients to Shelley all the time, and the difference is amazing. You can really see. She's a 4th generation in the clothing and fashion business. She's lived in Europe and the Middle East for 15 years, and she has rich experience as an image consultant, fashion stylist, costume designer, costume historian, tailor, and certified color consultant, which puts her in a unique category to understand what it takes to create a powerful and successful image, both in person and online. So Shelley, welcome. Thank you for making the time for this today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Super glad to be here.
Great.
Always glad to talk with you, Elizabeth. So, we always seem to have great conversations, and it just seems to keep rolling on.
Well, and I do the words and the presence, and you do the visual look. So what we do really fits together very well.
Right. Great team.
Yes. So everybody's talking about Zoom fatigue these days. What is your definition of Zoom? What is it in your world?
Well, I experienced Zoom fatigue. It's really horrible. Prior to COVID, I wasn't on a computer all day long. I wasn't sitting in this chair all day long. And as a result of COVID, I actually pivoted my business to helping people in person, to all of a sudden helping people look their best in their Zoom box to help elevate their brand and increase engagement with their business and their clients. And sitting here day after day, week after week, what now seems year after year, unbelievably
Yes.
so to actually say that, is fatiguing. It's fatiguing on our body. It's fatiguing on our brain. Just having to sit here and focus on a spot, on a location, on a camera, on a person. And a couple of months ago, Stanford University came out with a study about Zoom fatigue, which was really a compilation of a number of different studies over about 10, 15 years. And it hit me, it hit me like a rock. And I thought, wow, that's it. And because of that, I've put a presentation together, which is really just a continuation of helping you look your best in your box, to understanding what's causing all the Zoom fatigue, why people are exhausted, they're tired, they're depressed. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. That's really wonderful. And a lot of it is also because of COVID. We don't get the breaks we used to have of getting up and moving around or going out to lunch, things like that. And also a lot of companies then just say, okay, well, we know you're just home, so we're just going to book you from 6 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. I actually have clients who are talking to Europe from 6 o'clock on, and then they take a little break in the afternoon, and then they start talking to Asia in the evening. And it's it's a challenge. That's from a US time zone. I'm working for a European time zone now. And tomorrow night, I am going to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning to help clients, because I have a monthly call that once a month, I will get up and talk to them from 1 to 3 in the morning, which is not my usual best time of day. So
it's like you have to just shift your body just to accommodate that, and thus more Zoom fatigue. There you go. Perfect example. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I'm going to add that.
So
I'm going to add that
causes. So what are the causes of Zoom fatigue?
Okay, so there's quite a number of causes. I'm just going to kind of go and list a couple of the causes. One of the big causes is it's actually excess close-up eye contact. So our sphere of intimacy when we have our loved ones is about 23 inches. And with Zoom, people bring the whole Zoom screen and make it very big. And you have all these people's faces within your 23-inch radius. And these are people who are not normally in your intimate zone. So it's a breach of intimacy with large faces. So close-up eye contact. Another one is we are looking at ourselves all day long. I mean, that's we've talked about so many times, you're looking at yourself and as a result, actually plastic surgeons are booming, but what's happening when you're looking at yourself. So this was based on a study that was done a number of years ago of people looking at themselves in the mirror for short periods of time throughout the day. And this that's short periods of time, not for hours on end. And they realized the result of that study was that people started having negative thoughts about themselves. So that has just been exacerbated and multiplied by looking at yourself all day in the Zoom screen. Another cause is cognitive overload. So what is cognitive overload? So when we're sitting in a Zoom meeting, we have however many people, anywhere from 3 to 100 people in a Zoom meeting. And you are looking at all the people because you also want to see who's in the meeting. And you're having to decode both their facial expressions as well as their nonverbal body language. So you are on overload, cognitive overload, because all day long, you are constantly having to decode people's facial expressions. And it's not just one person that you're talking to all day long, it's multiple people. And you're not giving yourself time to decompress.
Let me ask you a little bit about that. And by the way, I should have said right away at the beginning, we're using Zoom as a category. So any online meeting, if you're on Teams or Google Meet or any of the others, it is where Zoom is the dominant platform, but it's really any online meeting. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between seeing people on a screen and seeing people live. Certainly, I know that it's if you're in a group, you're focusing on certain things, but you have other cues that you can pick up when they're live that you don't get from a screen.
Right. So if you and I were sitting at a cafe or sitting at a restaurant having a nice lunch, which definitely looking forward
to do someday again, yes.
Exactly. So if you and I were together at a table and you were talking and I really wanted to say something, I might tap my foot, but you don't see that on Zoom. Or I might move my fingers. I'm not going to hold my fingers up here so you could see, oh, I really want to say something. So that's the type of nonverbal cues that we're missing when we read somebody's whole body. So we actually have to work doubly hard within the box, figure out mostly from their facial expression, because not everybody really shows enough torso to show that nonverbal communication.
Mm-hmm.
So you're having to work extra hard to just really read how the cues. When do you want to say something? When do you want to jump in? When should I stop talking? Are you sad? Are you happy? You can't necessarily tell, because also one of the results of the study was women. Women are more stressed, more Zoom fatigued than men by quite a bit. The statistics are 1 in every 7 women is very to extremely Zoom fatigued, whereas 1 in every 20 men are very, yeah. And there's a number of reasons for that. And so just, going on the, let's have lunch in person versus let's sit in a meeting. So women also feel like they need to be in the center. There's of their Zoom screen. So they're cognitively working on being in the center of their screen. Also, women take shorter breaks and they take less breaks.
Fewer breaks, yes.
Yeah, fewer breaks than men. Thank you for that little correction there. They also feel the pressure because women are more talkative generally. So they feel like, to continue to talk and engage. So that's another thing. Also, because women have less senior roles, they don't have as much power in many companies, not all companies. Mm-hmm. They also don't have the ability to determine how long the Zoom meeting is going to be, or the WebEx meeting, or the Teams meeting, or whatever it is. So somebody else is predetermining that. So they have less power to figure that out. And also women have, this is huge. Are you ready for this? Women have on average 15 more hours per week of childcare and household responsibilities compared to men. So not only are we on Zoom longer, but we have other responsibilities that are also stressing us out. So it's really a huge compilation of individual statistics and activities that are causing women to be more zoomed out, more Zoom fatigued.
I was expecting you to say it's also because our society is so focused on how women look that if we're looking at ourselves all day long, it's really easy for the voices in your head to start going, oh gosh, you don't look very good, or that wasn't a good color for you today, etc. The self-critical voices, which saps a lot of energy.
Yes, that's also included. So we're looking at ourselves, we're more critical of how we look. So that's why I was saying, plastic surgeons, life is booming. Business is booming for plastic surgeons.
So you're as a stylist and an image expert, are women more self-critical than men?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Wish it weren't so, but yes.
Right. So we do, that's why I say, and that's actually a direct correlation to having to be in the middle more and more center in your Zoom screen. Whereas men they're good, they're just kind of hanging out, attending the meeting, and they don't really care. Whereas women, because women are more sensitive to how we look, how we present ourselves in the world in general, that we want to look good. So that's why we are more centered. We are, for the most part, more of us shows we're concerned about how we present on Zoom. Another factor of that is the size of the faces that we see on Zoom. So this one I think is really super interesting, because if this is your Zoom monitor, this is your monitor, your computer monitor, most people make the Zoom screen or WebEx screen the whole monitor. So you have these giant faces in front of you. You have, which again, that's invading your personal, intimate space. And so by making it a little bit smaller, so what I do is, if this is my monitor, I take my whole Zoom window and make it about 1/3 or 1/4 of my whole monitor. So I'm making the faces smaller, and it's reducing the fatigue, because I'm not able to decode every little emotion. Are they happy? Are they glad? Are they scared? Because their faces are just smaller.
But don't you want to read your audience, if you will? Check in how people are listening?
Yes, but it's a trade-off. How big do you need the faces? That's the question. How many people are on your call? How big do you need to have the faces? You could still have them smaller. You might not be able to read their eyes and all of their body language, but you can get a pretty good sense of how they're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So was that the list of the causes, or did you have more for the Zoom?
Yeah, there's more.
So tell me more. Tell me more.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So another one is, we're always checking. People are always checking us out, and we're always checking people out. So in reading the study, they equate it to being on stage. And so, Ms. Elizabeth, the producer director, the opera director, if you're on stage, you're always on. You're always on. You always have to have the right lines and the right posture and the right verbiage. And that's what it's like being on Zoom, that you're always on stage. You're always on.
It is a performance.
People are always checking you out. So that's yet another Zoom fatigue factor, is that you're checking people out and people are checking you out. So what can you do about it? Turn your camera off, have some phone calls. And so these are just some of the things that you could do. And if you put this whole list together, it's a lot of little details. And when I read the study, it like I said, it just kind of hit me. And since then, in the last 2 months, I've actually been practicing some of the suggestions that they talk about, which I haven't really talked about yet. So I can.
Okay. What can we do? Yes.
And I have to say, honestly, I am feeling so much less fatigued. My body's feeling better. So, okay, what can we do? Get up, walk around, touch your toes, move around between calls, even if it's 2 or 3 minutes worth of moving around, but get up and move your body. So that is really super important, to just get up and move. Let's see. Have just phone calls, or have maybe, even if you're on Zoom, just turn your cameras off, have an audio only.
Yes.
It's so much more relaxing. Yeah. So prior to COVID, if you and I wanted to talk, we'd probably get on the phone. And while I'm on the phone talking to you, I could be making my lunch, and I can be straightening up the kitchen after breakfast. And so these are things on the to-do list. Make lunch, straighten up the kitchen after breakfast. But you don't know that. But I'm still paying 100% attention to you when I'm on the phone. When I'm on Zoom, I can't be doing all these other little things that are on my checklist. So another thing that you could do to reduce the Zoom fatigue, like I mentioned, is take your Zoom screen, instead of really big, make it just much smaller, put it underneath your camera, directly under your camera, so that you're still looking at the camera, but also with that, you're diminishing other people's Zoom fatigue. And the way that's happening, if you make your Zoom screen a little bit smaller or much smaller, when you're looking at everybody on your Zoom screen, your eyes are only moving a little bit.
Right.
Whereas if you had a whole big Zoom screen and somebody in the bottom left corner is talking, and you're now going to look down at the bottom left corner and listen to this person talk, you have now detached from everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you have turned your head away from the camera. So if you keep everything in really relatively close to the camera, that will help. Another thing, thank you for leaning in. That was the next thing on my list, was by decreasing the distance. I'm sorry, I'm going to re-say that. By increasing the distance between you and your camera, by pushing the camera away,
okay,
you're not as engaged. It has to do with your intimate space. Just push everybody away a little bit. You might want to have an external camera that's a little further away from your monitor. And one huge thing that you could do is you can just turn it off your image. Just hide yourself so you're not looking at yourself all day long. But what you want to do is you want to make sure you're in the center. You've got your lighting is good left and right on your face, and just turn your image off. And that will lessen the fatigue in terms of looking at yourself. Like, okay, I'm looking at myself. It's a little bit stressful. I don't really think I look so good today. I just got my hair cut yesterday. It's feeling awfully short to me.
Well, and it also helps you really focus on the other person.
Exactly.
So really paying attention to the others.
Right. One more fatigue factor is on your eyes. So there is a phenomenon called computer vision syndrome. It's basically digital eye strain, and it's caused or exacerbated by really by other vision problems that you already have. And but people's eyes still are feeling pretty tired. So here was another thing. These are the blue light blocking glasses, and they are a myth. So we have busted the myth. The reality is, even though these are, I was sucked into them, the eyeglass companies are promoting blue glasses. Even my insurance gives you an extra discount if you get an extra pair of blue light blocking glasses. But the reality, according to science, is there's so little blue light coming from your computer compared to the blue light outside. So when you're outside, when you're outside, you have the full spectrum of colors, the blue lights, red light, green light, all the different colors of the rainbow. And you're not necessarily wearing sunglasses all the time. So there's actually more blue light outside than coming off your computer. So that is, that's a little bit of a myth, but you might have dry eyes. So you might want to put eye drops in. And if you put eye drops, you want to make sure that they are artificial tears.
Correct. Yes.
And
not the ones that clear up the red eye.
Right. You want it to say artificial tears. And that will help the stress on your eyes. Perhaps you do have an astigmatism or some other thing going on with your eyes. So this is just something that you should just be aware of. Give your eyes a rest. Give your hips a rest, get up, do some walking. And so these are just some tips that'll help you lessen the Zoom fatigue that you're feeling as a result of sitting at your computer hour after hour, day after day, into year 2 and beyond.
Right. So Shelley, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much. And absolutely very useful to know. Of course, we should go to you first to make sure that our Zoom background and our lighting is good. And then we can talk about how do we not use it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Shelley, how can we find out more about your Zoom makeovers? Because I do have to say, they make such a difference to everybody I know who's done one has raved about it. How do we
Okay.
find out?
So you can contact me a couple different ways. You can email me directly. My email is Shelley, make sure it's an EY. So it's Shelley at shelleygoldenstyle.com. Or you can go directly to my website, check it out. I have a lot of information. And the website is www.shelleygoldenstyle.com.
Thank you very much. Shelley, thank you so much for having been my guest on the weekly broadcast of Strategic Speaking for Results. I'm Elizabeth Bachman, your host. And I'd like to remind you, if you're interested in seeing how your presentation skills are strong, you could take my quiz. It takes 4 minutes, which is speakforresultsquiz.com. And that you'll get an assessment that will show you where you're strong and where a little support could help you get better results. And it also connects you to me, where you can then have a follow-up conversation perfectly free, just to discuss what you've learned from the assessment. That's speakforresultsquiz.com. I'm Elizabeth Bachman. My guest today is Shelley Golden. Thank you all very much, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, Elizabeth.